Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you. I hope you had a great weekend. I had a pretty good one. I went on a fishing trip, and it was pretty solid. The weather was a little iffy, but overall it was good. And now I'm not going for about 3 weeks as the spring breakers invade Florida, and they use the boat for half-day trips, and it becomes a real party boat. So anyway, I'm glad to have you guys coming to Florida. We're glad to have you, much to the chagrin of some of the media. But I welcome the spring breakers to Florida. I was a spring breaker myself one time, or probably more than once, in the distant past. Well, we got a great show for you today. We're going to start with Democrats are celebrating, man. They are celebrating that they passed this $2 trillion Corona Relief Act, which really doesn't relieve much of anything except taxpayers' money out their pocket. But they're celebrating. The Democrats are now celebrating because they basically feel like that there's nothing they cannot do or do to us. And we'll expand upon that. And then if we have time, we're going to talk a little bit more about Mr. Biden's border policy, which is basically just a wide open the door, Katie bar the door, and everybody can bum rush us now south of the border. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because the situation down there is changing rapidly and not for the better, I don't believe. But before we go any further, we always got to talk about our sponsor. In this case, Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. Boy, they had a great week last week. They brought in some people that are going to be influencers. I'm not at liberty to tell you exactly who they are, but they're big time names. So they are growing. I'm going to have some guests on the show in the not too distant future that are A-listers, and not that we've had anything less than that before, but these are nationally recognized people, and we'll expand upon that as we go forward in the coming days and week. But Big Daddy Unlimited is your Second Amendment headquarters. No matter when or where you're watching the show, look above the video and scroll down. You'll see a description of the show. You'll see several links in there. Some of them take you to our sponsor. One of them is Big Daddy Unlimited, where you get factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition delivered directly to your door, including 100,000 other items that are Second Amendment related, from not only guns and ammo, but you can even get swag, but you can get tactical gear, survival gear, you name it. When it comes to the Second Amendment, you can get it through Big Daddy Unlimited. So check them out. You cannot go wrong. And they are your Second Amendment headquarters, because not only do they supply you with all that, but they defend your Second Amendment, which is under attack on a daily basis. We also have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. Use the promo code JMT, the initials of our show, John Martin Talks. You get 20% off of anything they sell there, and they are a total fulfillment center. They can design and ship out T-shirts that have a patriotic theme for the charity of your choice. They'll help you with all of that. They'll help you pick a charity. They'll help you get the proceeds to that charity. Check them out, patriotthreads.org, JMT, 20% off. Recoil TV. If you haven't heard of Recoil TV, you need to check them out. They also have a magazine that's quite popular called Recoil Magazine. They have a YouTube channel. Of course, we have one as ourselves. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. We need more subscribers and likes and shares there. But Recoil TV gives us a channel as well, and they are all about the Second Amendment. Check them out because they demonstrate products with their videos on a daily basis, and you cannot go wrong if you're interested in all things Second Amendment between BDU and Recoil TV. They pretty much got you covered, and there's more information in the links above the video. Check it out. All right, let's get into it. This is a Breitbart story. Democrats celebrate passage of 1.9 trillion. You know how they do that 1.9? It's kind of like, gas being, like 259.9 or something like that. And like they always said, why don't they just say 2 trillion? I mean, once you get to 1.9 trillion, I think 2 trillion is fair enough. Democrats celebrate passage of $1.9 trillion coronavirus bill. This is just the start of what Congress can do, and there's multiple tweets. We're not going to cover all the different Democratic senators that spoke up in this article, just kind of the highlights or the lowlights. There he is, Chucky Schumer. He is celebrating, man. He is enjoying himself because he's in total control now. Democrat senators celebrated the upper chamber's passage of the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief measure on Saturday, framing it as just the start of what Congress can do moving forward. Just the start. Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to do it, but I'm going to proclaim it right now. Idiocracy is upon us. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a great movie, probably 20 years old now. It's called Idiocracy. I got a scene from it, you'll see. But basically, the government is totally run by idiots. The vast majority of Americans at this point in time in the future of this movie are idiots. And one guy who used to be an idiot in the past is now the smartest guy in the world simply because he came from the past. So idiocracy is upon us. But hey, I guess there's good news in this coronavirus bill, because finally Guam might be safe. I mean, these idiots bring you all this stuff. This is a famous video. We've played it before. But is there funding to save Guam in this video? Because we know that based on Democratic testimony that Guam is severely threatened. If you don't believe me and you don't believe idiocracy is upon us, check out this video. It kind of proves both things at once. Check it out.
My fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that.
Wow, boy. And the scary part is that dude is a congressman, I think from Georgia, and he's still up there. That was about 5 or 6 years ago, and he got reelected 3 or 4 times since then. And he really was serious there, ladies and gentlemen. He believed that Guam, if we built any more bases there or expanded the bases that we have there, which is what that House hearing was all about, that Guam itself was going to flip over. The island, not sink, flip over. Like it's just teetering out there, just bobbing around like a rubber ducky. This is the people that we've elected to Congress, for God's sakes. You know, you see that admiral there? He's like, oh, we don't really anticipate that happening. But idiocracy, ladies and gentlemen, is upon us. And I would not be surprised if with a $2 trillion bailout here, there isn't at least a few buckets to bail out Guam to keep it from flipping over. The Senate passed a controversial $1.9 coronavirus relief bill on party line. It wasn't controversial. The only controversy Democrats was it too small? Remember, Biden kept saying, it's got to be big enough and bold enough. But they passed it along party lines 50-49. Republican Representative Dan Sullivan from Arkansas was not present for the vote, traveling home from a family emergency. I think his father had passed, and I was burying the gentleman, I think. But Kamala, I guess, because of that, don't blame the gentleman from Arkansas, because Kamala was waiting in the wings to cast the deciding vote had it been a 50-50 tie. And so, you know, the only thing is she missed her moment. But I got a feeling she's going to have plenty of them in the future. Senator Elizabeth Warren, as I like to call her, Liawapa. You know, President Trump labeled her Pocahontas, but I call her Liawapa. I think it fits her better. Senator Elizabeth Warren celebrated the measure's passage as historic, labeling it a powerful bill that will make a real difference. Well, she ought to know, man. I mean, this meme kind of says it all, doesn't it? The Democrats have really, idiocracy, it's become being a Democrat leader, it's like a mental illness with them now. I mean, it is just crazy what they're doing. But she said, this be Elizabeth Warren, this is just the start of what Congress can do. So hold on to your horses, grab your wallet, that's for sure. This is just the start of what Congress can do for working families. We must raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, I've talked about the minimum wage ad nauseum, but I just got to tell you, minimum wage has never been designed to help working families. If you're out there and you're thinking, boy, man, if I could just get to $15 an hour, I'm going to be able to have a bunch of kids and live the good high life. That's just not what minimum wage has ever been. Minimum wage will always be, no matter how much they raise it to, it will always be just that, minimum wage. It doesn't matter how much they raise it, because the economy will adjust and you'll be at the bottom, and you're supposed to be an entry-level position. Working for minimum wage sucks. Guess what? I hate to break it to you. It's supposed to suck. It's not supposed to be like, I have made it, whoop, whoop. I have made the American dream. I'm making $15 an hour, man. Yeah. It's never supposed to be that. And the idea of a federal minimum wage is ludicrous. I don't care even if you're for a minimum wage. It makes no sense to have a federal minimum wage, because it takes a whole lot more to live out in California or New York City than it does in Des Moines, Iowa. It just does. You know, think about that. $15 an hour in some place, maybe in Biloxi, Mississippi, might actually, and I'm not knocking anybody, might actually mean you could afford an apartment or something like that. If you're making $15 an hour and you're living in New York City, man, you can't even afford to live on a park bench. So it's ridiculous across the board. But Ms. Warren, she went on to say, we need to invest in infrastructure, K-12 education, and a clean energy economy, vowing to fight with every tool in the box to help our families and economies recover. Well, Ms. Warren is like right in lock with you. If you're struggling out there, America, she's struggling with you. Because keep in mind, this lady, who now is, one of the top political leaders in the country, doesn't even know how to work a beer. Check this out.
A beer. Hey, Robert, my husband Bruce is now in here. You want a beer?
No, I'll pass on the beer for now.
You sure? Come over and say hello to folks.
Yes.
So, this is my sweetie.
Hello.
And I'm crazy.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, enjoy your beer.
Who have we got here so far? Skylar, and 14 others. Hello, Denise. Hi. Fortnite. Good to see you. Who else have we got? Kenny, is that right? Kenny and the boys? I'm glad to see you. Is that Greeny Goddess? Wow. That's a name I'd like to have.
Okay.
So
I tell you what, man, she's got talent. I mean, he goes like, I could make a really bad joke, but I will let that one hang out there. You have a future well beyond minimum wage, Miss Warren, let me tell you. But I like how she says, how many people we got watching us out there? Maybe look, 14 people? Man, it reminds me of Mr. Bill Clinton. I don't know if you guys remember this. I started to play the video, but I'll just tell the story. Remember when Bill was running for first time around for president, and he obviously won, but he was on MTV back when they actually played music videos. I don't think MTV even does music videos anymore, but Clinton was on there in some kind of probably one of their first kind of audience participation things. And they asked him about the boxers are brief was the famous thing, but they also asked him about whether he had smoked pot in college. Bill Clinton, right? And he said, yeah, but I didn't inhale it. And I remember watching that and going like, And I was thinking about support. I'll be honest with you. I was thinking about supporting Bill at the time. You know, I was still a Democrat. Of course, the first president I ever voted for was Ronald Reagan. So that kind of tells you where I'm at. But I was thinking about, I'm saying, man, this dude can't even work a joint. He doesn't know how to smoke a joint, and he's going to have the nuclear codes. I mean, for God's sakes, what is it with these liberal Democrats that don't know how to drink a beer or smoke a joint, man? I mean, I'm not advocating either one, but if you don't, I mean, Elizabeth Warren, like, I mean, who the hell drinks, excuse my language, but who drinks a beer? Like, it's been a while since I had a beer. I've been clean and sober now for like 32 years, but I've had my share. You can have the rest. I'm not a preacher or a law enforcement. I just know my own limitations, man. Grace of God be the glory. I appreciate it very much. But Elizabeth Warren, And Bill Clinton, he can't work a joint, man. Yeah, they got your back. But here's what Sherrod Brown had to say. He's a Democrat from Ohio. He said the American Rescue Plan has passed. Democrats promise more shots in people's arms. I don't know. Maybe he can take a shot. Maybe he get a shot from Ms. Warren. Money in people's pockets, children in schools, and workers in jobs. Workers in jobs. So that's what we're getting from coronavirus. Really? You really believe that, man? Workers. So these people, these Democrats, are really worried about American workers. Where the first thing they do when they get in office on day one is cancel all the high-paying jobs of the XL pipeline. Make it where your gas prices are going up. You know, gas prices, by the way, are a direct tax on the poorest of the poor. You ever thought about that? When gas prices go up, and they're going up dramatically, and I don't think we've seen anywhere near the ceiling of where they're going to be under a Biden administration, God help us. But again, they say, oh, we're not going to raise taxes on anybody that's making less than $250,000 a year. Well, you all knew that was a lie to start with. But raising the basic cost of commodities like food and gasoline, I love how they do inflation. They say inflation was only at 3% if you take away gas and food. Well, if you take away gas and food, there ain't a whole heck of a lot left, is there? Take away my gas and my food, I'm not sure what I want to spend my money on. But gasoline, I hate to break this to you snowflakes out there, but when the cost of gas goes up, everything else goes up with it. It's a direct tax on the poorest of the poor. It's just the way it is, working people. And keep in mind when they talk about money in people's pockets and children in schools, I'm going to mention that in just a minute. But what about Neanderthals, man? We're Neanderthals now. If you hadn't caught that, we talked about it last week. Check out our podcast. You can go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page. Don't forget our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks. Of course, we're archived at Recoil TV. We're also on Dish Network, channel 219, via America's Voice News, the Pluto channel as well. If you hadn't checked out America's Voice News, we're archived. We're not on there live right now, but we're archived on their network. They're a great alternative to the mainstream media. You can download a free app on your Android, your iPhone. They stream on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. Go to their streaming service, click on the shows tab, and you can search us out, and we're on there. But like I said last week, man, Joe Biden said that basically any of these states that were reopening wide open, like Texas and all, were Neanderthals. That's what they are. And a bunch of these senators, and I say I'm not going to read all their different tweets and twats or whatever, but they keep mentioning children in schools, like now we can actually open up the schools because we passed this corona relief package. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the closure of schools had zippo to do with corona relief money. It's not like they were just sitting there going, man, we're chomping at the bit here in California to open the schools. If we just get a few more $1 billion, we'll do it. That's not what it was at all. The reason the schools are closed in the states they're still closed in is because of the teachers union. They don't want to go back to work. It's just that simple. And so to what extent there's going to be money to open the schools, they're just going to pay the teachers more. I'm not saying teachers don't deserve more, but don't make it sound like that, oh, if it wasn't for these Democrats that voted, the schools would have never opened. The schools, the children in our schools have been held political hostage. It's not about corona. I mean, we're going to talk about the border here in a minute, but let's go ahead and talk about it right now. The children are coming across the border in record numbers without their parents. And they're being put in school, they're being put in cages and freight car containers, but they're being put to school and they're being tested and they're turning up positive. The illegal immigrants they're capturing coming across the border, it's close to 7% of them are testing positive for coronavirus, being released deep into the United States of America, and the children that are being held back are being taught. It's got nothing to do with the money. Never did one little bit. And I'm not opposed to them putting more money into schools. And I'm not saying some of them don't need to be rebuilt. What we really need is school choice. But they're probably not going to push that. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent from Vermont, I guess he's back to being an independent now, described the legislation as the most significant piece of legislation to benefit working families in modern history of this country. Wow. So the Democrats have done the biggest expanse of government, according to Bernie Sanders, in the history of the nation. Because keep in mind, that's what this is all about, making us more and more dependent on a big bloated federal government. The exact opposite of what this country was founded on, the Constitution. Because keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is one reason I battle ignorance and apathy on a daily basis, because they don't teach this in schools anymore. The Constitution, contrary to what some people believe, was never about empowering government. In fact, it is just the opposite. The Constitution is about protecting the rugged individualist from the overreach of federal government, a big, bloated, powerful federal government that will take away your God-given rights, your inalienable rights. That's what the Constitution's primary function is. But you wouldn't recognize it today. You can imagine our founding fathers coming back and looking at what we're doing now, looking at this corona relief package. I don't think they'd they would think either the Constitution has been totally amended and taken out, or maybe we're just ignoring it, because they would not recognize this form of government. It is not the form of government we're founded on. Some of you may think that's better. I happen to not be one of those. This package, among many, according to Bernie, this is what he said. This package, among many other things, increases direct payments by $1,400. Now, didn't Biden promise you $2,000 in Georgia if you voted his way? Yes, they not. Promises made, promises not kept. But it extends unemployment benefits, basically meaning you getting paid to stay at home. Reduces child poverty by half. How does that happen? How does that automatically reduce child poverty by half? Are they giving it to the children? I don't think so. I mean, this idea that you can just, okay, we'll just throw this number out there and automatically, so let it be, like almost like, Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments as the Pharaoh, so let it be written, so let it be done. Just matter of fact, they just state that cut child poverty in half. Really. Ensures we are vaccinating, this is Bernie again, vaccinate as many people as possible, and puts us on a path to safely reopen schools. There again, safely. So the schools would have been closed forever if it weren't for the coronavirus relief package. And they haven't even spent all the money in the former relief package that passed under the Trump administration. They haven't even spent half of it. So, it's just, they just got to get a big enough bankroll number up there, right? As I say, school choice, that's what the Republicans really need to push hard, especially in minority neighborhoods, school choice, because as long as the teachers' unions have control over our school system, our children are going to be poorly educated indeed. But that's what they really want. They don't want people to have critical thinking. They want to teach you what to think, not how to think. Republican lawmakers in both chambers have continued to warn against the bill, contending the vast majority of the measure is devoted to issues unrelated to the Chinese coronavirus pandemic. Well, at least Breitbart calls it what it is, the Chinese virus. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, this bill is basically a bailout for the cities and states that are the blue cities, the blue states that were poorly run, that are going bankrupt. They were on their way before coronavirus, and it is a bailout for them. That's what the biggest part of this bill is, plus a bunch of pet projects like a bridge to nowhere in Canada for Schumer and subways for Pelosi, which she'll never ride, out in San Francisco. Let's just do a simple little math on this. I'm going to round it up, ladies and gentlemen, and I double check this to make sure I'm right. Hopefully I am. $2 trillion. Just how much money is $2 trillion? Well, if you assume that there's roughly 350 American people, that's what they say, not counting everybody else, but 350 million Americans, that's the number generally figured. You do the math on that, that is $5,714 and change per person. So why not just give that money to the American people? If you really are about helping the American people, I can tell you this, if you want to help me, directly. Give me some change I can spend. Because you always hear Democrats talk about quality of life. Well, I don't know all that much. But one thing I've learned over the years that my quality of life is usually pretty directly to the depth of my pocketbook. Because I don't need, I mean, I've talked about this, I hadn't said it in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. To understand people, sometimes you have to understand some one core thing in their being, and you understand them, what they do makes sense. And with Donald Trump, this is just my opinion, but it's an opinionated fact nonetheless. I think Donald Trump at his core was and is a business person. He comes to it as a businessman, right? And so he kind of believes that if you got money in your pocket, change you can spend, your quality of life directly related to your pocketbook, that you can figure out all the rest on your own. You don't need government. You didn't need the president to tell you who to sleep with or who not to basically how to raise your kids or not to, whether to put them in this school or not to. You didn't have to do all that. He believed that you're fully capable as a person to run your own affairs, and that if you have enough money in your pocket, that you can decide all of that. Because if you're trying to worry where your next meal is going to be, whether you can keep the lights on or a roof over your head, nothing else really matters either, right? So when you have those needs met, you can figure all the rest of your quality of life issues out on your own, right? But the Democrats, not so much. They want to control your quality of life. But I've been pushing all along what we really need to do. Of course, now they're going to do this Corona plan. They're going to go back to the House, and it's going to be sorted out. But it's basically going to stay the same. And Biden, of course, is waiting to sign off on it. But I actually think we should just go with the Martin plan. If you're new to the show, you might not have heard this. But to me, we just need to shut Congress down completely. Shut them down. Now, they've already got the Capitol pretty neatly packed away. I mean, they got it fenced off. It's well protected. So it's not like, they got the National Guard up there and they're not really doing anything, and I'm not knocking them. But they got the Capitol pretty well fenced off. I think we've shown pictures that'll show that. So the way I look at it is just abandon the Capitol totally, keep it fenced off so nothing happens. There you go. I mean, they got it packed down pretty good. And basically set the budget as exactly what it is now. Whatever it is, just keep it there. No new laws passed. This is the Martin plan. No new laws. Yeah, we'll just pay Congress to stay home. It'd be cheaper. Be cheaper than have them up there. It may hurt the businesses. Maybe we could pay the local businesses, whatever. But just shut them down. Keep the budget exactly what it is. I'm halfway teasing, but I really believe this would work. Keep the budget exactly as it is with one caveat. Every year, every budget is cut by 1 penny, 1% on a dollar, 1 penny, right? And just do it for 10 years. Now, I'm not saying I agree with the laws or the programs or not. I'm just saying as appeasement, just keep them all the same. And then come back after 10 years and see where we are. I'll bet you we'd be better off than we are now, but I don't imagine that is likely to happen. But that's, ladies and gentlemen, while I'm battling ignorance and apathy daily. I got to tell you a quick story that happened to me over the weekend that kind of sums up why we're in the mess we're in. And this, I'm not trying to pick on this person, and I think this lady represents a lot of Americans. I was at a supermarket getting some stuff for my trip down in St. Petersburg. I let the store even remain anonymous as well. And I was checking out, and there were two women that kind of running the cashier and baggage or whatever. And there was another woman behind me. And she picked up a copy of People magazine or something. Anyway, it had Dolly Parton on it. And she said, "Oh, I just love Dolly Parton." And then the three women got to talking about Dolly Parton. And the woman that originally picked up the magazine said, "Well, I wish she was vice president instead of Kamala." I don't know what that was all about. But then it started a conversation. I was just standing there. Well, I wasn't saying a word. And so they talked about it. And finally, I did chime in. I said, well, one thing we know for sure, no matter what your politics, Biden has proven to be senile. and the cashier looked at me and says, we don't talk about politics here. Now, they were talking about politics until some old white dude, and we were all white, by the way, just for context. And I guess an old gray-haired white dude, it must be a Trump supporter, he said, Biden's senile. I said, well, I'm not talking politics either. I'm not telling you which side I'm on. I'm just stating the fact that Biden is pretty much senile. I said, I don't really relish saying that, right? And so the woman went back and forth with me when I was about to leave. And she said, well, the one thing, this was the cashier, she said, that I really like about Joe Biden. I was waiting to hear it, policy. She said, have you noticed everything is calm now? We're calmer now. Everything is calm. And that's what I really want is calm. It doesn't matter what the heck's happening as long as it's calm for now. It's kind of like the guy jumping off the building, the 100-story building. They heard him all the way down. He said, so far, so good. I mean, believe me, that represents tens of millions of people. They just want it to be calm. They don't want to have to think about anything. And I started to get into it, and I said, nah, I'll just go on, do my deal here and walk away. But I wanted to just turn around and say, what does that tell you? That it was crazy in the streets before Biden got elected, and now it's calm. She basically summed up what I've been saying, that mob rule. It's all about that. It's all about the power. All of the stuff, what she said there to me, maybe I'm overreading it. You chime in on Facebook or wherever and let me know. But it basically means that all of that rioting about, equality and police brutality was all bogus BS. It had nothing to do with any of that. It was all political theater to hurt Donald Trump and to get Joe Biden elected, man. That's all this whole thing is about. Trump derangement syndrome is so bad and so real that Americans, let alone the leaders, will destroy America or just peacefully watch it go by in order to have calm. And I've been saying this for several years now, even before Trump became in the White House. If you look at what's happening in our country, we have a group of one people. It's like watching a homecoming parade where you got people on one side of the street and you got people on the other side of the street, both behind barricades, and they're just shouting back and forth at each other, negative stuff. But in the meantime, America, as we love it and know it, is just being paraded right on out by big corporations, mainstream media, progressive leftists bent on destroying this country. And that's what's happening. And they want to keep us shouting at each other so that we will not be, because don't believe for a second that the Democrats want us to be unity. They don't want unity. They just want the policies to pass. I've been talking to a lot of friends of mine lately that, they don't understand what's happening. And I've been telling them that you're thinking about this all wrong. You're thinking about it from a logical perspective. Like, why is Biden not giving a State of the Union address? Why is he not giving press conferences? Why aren't people more fed up about the Democrats? The ones that have taken over the Democratic Party, the hardcore progressive leftists, don't care about the base. They don't worry about the base. All they worry about is the policies. If the policies are being passed and they're righteous, nothing else matters. That's always been about the progressives. The progressives are all about, they don't care about political messaging up to a point. They don't mainly, but it's all about the policies. So as long as the policy is being implemented, which show me where it's not being implemented, they don't care about anything else. Once you understand that, you understand the progressive mentality. It's not about show America what it's about the policies, and the policies are getting passed rapidly under the Biden administration. All right, let me check the time. We're doing okay. Let's get into this next story here. This is a Washington Post story. I can't even believe they actually printed it because it actually somewhat paints Biden's immigration policy in a poor light. But maybe there are some people who actually care about America there. And I always got to give a little caveat about this before I get into immigration. I don't blame people for trying to get here. It's desperate in places like Mexico, South and Central America, and getting more desperate all the time. As we talked about tragically last week, that SUV that had 28 people, supposed to hold 6, had 28 people crash across the border, about half of them got killed in a wreck when they collided with a semi. How desperate do you have to be the 28th person to get in that dadgum truck? And there were children in there as well. So I get it, man. I understand it. I might have been desperate enough to jump in that truck. If I knew how great America was, or even thought I knew, compared to maybe Guatemala, what would you do? So I don't blame him at all. But we can't have a country without a border. It's not possible. But Biden is just crazy, man. Anyway, this is the Washington Post. Biden administration rushes to accommodate border surge with few signs of plans to contain it. And did you see this picture? Now, where are they getting these shirts and T-shirts and stuff from? Biden let us in. This is real. This is happening in the southern border. There are organizations that plan this out. They scheme. They know how to game the system. And it's all progressive political nonsense bent to destroy this nation. Do you actually think that a lot of people from Guatemala are just going online and getting Joe Biden T-shirts? No, they're passing them out. It's all planned. But it's real. That's not a doctored photo. As the Biden administration races to find shelter for a fast-growing migration surge, illegal immigrants, I'm going to call it like it is. I might get, penalized, but I'm just going to call it. A surge along the Mexican border. They are handling the influx primarily as a capacity challenge. Think about that. It's not about whether they're breaking the law. It's not about whether they, 7% of them have COVID and all that. It's not about any of that. It is about capacity. They're just looking at it as a math problem. That's all they're really looking at it. The measures they have taken are aimed accommodating to the increase, not to contain or change the upward trend. They're just trying to find out how to handle it the best way they can. Now, I hear people talk about Biden's agenda. I don't know that Biden even has an agenda. I mean, I think he asked himself last week the toughest question that has been asked of him when he said, "Why am I here?" I mean, that's tough. He asked his own self a tougher question than any media person has. But Biden, to what extent Biden's agenda? It's been fulfilled already. Biden's only agenda, and this is before he got senile, his agenda was to be president of the United States of America. That was it. If you go back and look at Biden's campaigns, as terrible as they were, it was just all about becoming president. His policies have always smelled. His decision making has always been poor. Biden has been on the wrong side of history for the last 47, almost 50 years. His agenda is to be president, and he's accomplished that. Now, I think that makes him an ideal candidate, or now an ideal president, for the progressive left. Because you hear the term tabula rasa, a blank slate. Yeah, I know a little bit of Latin. It's surprised you don't. But I've played this video quite often last year. I hadn't played it, I don't think, this year. But if you want to understand who Joe Biden currently is right now and why the progressive left, he's the perfect choice for them, because he's got a lot of people Buffalo like, it's calm now. Biden is just what this video portrays right here. Check it out. That's Joe Biden. He is an empty shell, man. And as long as people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez can go and blow right up that's all they care about. Joe Biden is an empty shell, tabula rasa. They're just putting it out there. Biden is in control of nothing. He's in control of, you notice he's always got either Kamala or Jill there. And that's it, man. And Biden is senile, I'm just telling you. I don't say that with any relish whatsoever. On several days this week, U.S. agents took more than 4,000 migrants into custody, nearly double the number in January. And that's just the ones they're catching. They're telling you there's tons of video out there of people just bum rushing. There's this one area in Arizona where the fence is not complete, where they got like new fence up, but there's one area, and they're just like Old Faithful geyser. Every like couple of hours, they have a bunch of them just run through there, and nothing anybody can do, man. But almost, as I say, almost 7% of these people are testing positive for coronavirus and just being let go. Is the coronavirus real or not? Is it the plague upon us or not? Because if you look at it, if it is the grave threat, and I'm not saying it's not, but if it's the grave threat that they portray, then how can you justify letting tens of thousands of people come in that you know are infected with the virus, come in and just disappear? Americans are still being quarantined. I know people right now. I had a person I know right now just went into quarantine for coronavirus here in Florida. My prayers are with her. But if you come across Mexico, no big deal. Roughly 350 teens and children have been crossing the U.S. border without their parents each day in recent weeks. 350 unaccompanied minors a day. That's the ones they're catching without their parents, and they're being caught intentionally. They're intentionally being caught. I'll get into that in a minute. Without their parents each day in recent weeks, 4 times as many as last fall, and many are stuck for days in dour detention cells waiting for shelter openings, while most adult migrants are turned away. Listen to this. While most adult migrants are turned away, unaccompanied minors are allowed to stay, as are some families with young children. It's a gimmick. It's a ruse. These people know how to game the system. They're being portrayed. I'm not saying that it's tempting to say, oh, well, what parent would allow this to happen? Because I'm not going down that road. I'm not going down that road of thinking that just because you're ethnically different or from different countries that you care less about your children. I don't believe that for a minute. But the reality is that it's about chain migration. They're so desperate, just like the 28th person in that dadgum SUV, that the parents, I believe they do love their kids, but they're so desperate to get here that they know that they can game the system by letting their kids in. They'll get to stay, they'll clear, and then once they're given this pathway to citizenship, then the rest of the family can follow. So it's not that they don't care about their kids. They're desperate enough to risk anything so that they can get the rest of their family in. That's just a fact. President Joe Biden will soon send top advisors to the border to assess the info and report back their findings. Excuse me. The White House said Friday, although Department of Homeland Security officials have warned internally that the largest migration wave in more than 2 decades could arrive in the coming months. They're coming. This is what the Biden administration is admitting. Biden officials have not said publicly what new legal or enforcement tactics they are considering, if any, to slow it. Like they want to slow it? You really believe they want to slow it? Let me check my time. I've got about 3 minutes left. Listen to this. Teresa Cardinal Brown, an immigration analyst at the Bipartisan Policy Center, which means Republicans cave, in Washington, said the administration, talking about Biden, is treating the strain as a logistical and operational problem. Trying to deal with it. But whether they see it as a political problem is a different question. No, it's not. They don't see this. Biden himself said it last year. We've played this before, but I think it bears replaying. Check it out. If you want to know what Biden thinks about what's happening here, listen to this.
We can afford to do this this is a big country. The idea we can accommodate more people in the interest of the United States. And by the way, guess what? They're the reason why. The legal as well as undocumented are the reason why our society is functioning. The reason why our economy is growing. We don't talk about that. We stand up and act like it's a burden. It is not a burden. It's a gift.
It's a gift. Illegal people coming here, 7% of them infected with coronavirus, is just a gift. It's a gift, man. Biden, she said, but this analyst said, Biden ran on being the anti-Trump. He made clear that an emphasis on deterrence was not what he was going to do, and he's got elected. So I think using enforcement as a primary means of managing what is happening at the border is not what he wants to do. So he ran on the anti-Trump, as I said earlier in the show. What it's come down to, ladies and gentlemen, is Trump derangement syndrome versus the TDS versus USA. And their Trump derangement syndrome is so strong that they literally can't see what's happening in there, and they don't care. They just want to fundamentally change America, which means do away with the Constitution. I played this video last week. I'm going to end the show with it again now. And I had someone chime in on Facebook saying that I was just using scare tactics. And I chimed back in on a person, and I said, well, how would you interpret this video? Of course, they never really responded. But this, ladies and gentlemen, to me sums up the entire Democratic, and I'm talking about the leaders, not the average rank and file Democrat, but the people who have taken over their party. They believe exactly what Antifa, which is the armed wing of the Democratic Party, is saying. Listen to their chant, and you tell me where I'm wrong. No borders, no wall, no USA at all. How would you interpret that? Maybe I'm wrong, but they're chanting no borders, no walls, no USA at all. I don't know how else to interpret that. Maybe you could help me on that. I take these progressives at their word. Trump derangement syndrome has exposed them for what they truly are. And if you listen, they will tell you they don't care. It's a gift. Remember Joe Biden and the Democrats, all that were running in 2020, were all for open border and a welfare policy. They all raised their hand like, yeah, and all that. Promises made, promises kept. And understand this, when you hear back when Obama was running and now with a Biden, that they want to fundamentally change America. That means that they want to do away with the Constitution. They want no borders, no walls, no USA at all. I don't know how clear we can put it in that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Facebook page, like it, share it with others. We're determined to stay in the public square. We're expanding to other areas as well. But check out our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. Remember our sponsors and the links above the video. But like I say each and every day, ladies and gentlemen, I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great country because she needs it and, boy, deserves it more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours. Have a blessed day.